In a chilling daylight abduction, a young mother was seized right before the eyes of her own family. Just hours later, her lifeless body was discovered, riddled with 5 gunshot wounds to the head, mere miles from her home. Investigators revealed that the man who pulled the trigger was none other than her twin sister's boyfriend, driven by a disturbing motive. We delve deep into the heartbreaking story of Michelle Hampton, guided by retired NYPD Detective Tom Smith. I'm Sierra Gillespie, and this is Law and Crime News. The shocking elements of Michelle Hampton's case range from the violent abduction and murder to the twisted motive behind the crime. The timeline begins at approximately 7 a.m. on Wednesday, November 20th. It was then that Michelle was taken in broad daylight. Armed and ruthless, the suspect forced Michelle into a yellow Ram truck before speeding away. This harrowing moment unfolded right before her twin sister Samantha and 2 nephews. Samantha immediately recognized one of the kidnappers as her boyfriend, 43-year-old Anwan Mosby. Samantha recognized one of the kidnappers as her boyfriend, Anwan Mosby, and pursued the truck from Clayton to St. Louis, desperate to save her sister, until gunfire forced her to stop. The pursuit ended abruptly when gunfire erupted. Bullets were fired at Samantha's car. It was later confirmed that Mosby himself had pulled the trigger. Thankfully, Samantha escaped injury and promptly alerted police, placing a 911 call less than 30 minutes after Michelle was abducted. Following the abduction, Michelle was coerced into visiting several banks around St. Louis to withdraw cash. These moments were captured on security camera footage. One image shows Michelle sitting in the back of the truck, facing a bank teller. At a bank, Michelle tried to withdraw $10,000 but was only permitted $2,000. At another branch, a teller invited Michelle inside to complete the transaction, but instead, the truck suddenly sped away. Meanwhile, Samantha tracked Michelle's location using the Life 360 app. She relayed this information to the police, who found Michelle's phone at the location, but not Michelle herself. It was not until around 11 a.m., after a report of gunfire on St. Louis's northwest side, that police finally discovered Michelle's body. At the grim scene, officers recovered a .40 caliber shell casing and a bank withdrawal receipt. Michelle's body lay in an alley, a haunting sight. She had suffered 5 fatal gunshots to the head. The investigation swiftly escalated to a murder case, with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Homicide Division taking the lead. Advertisement segment omitted. Advertisement segment omitted. Advertisement segment omitted. The process was simple. Download the Upside app and claim an offer on any purchase made. Users paid normally, then followed the app's steps to secure their cash back. To discover potential earnings, viewers were directed to download the Upside app via a link or QR code, using promo code LCNews for an extra 25 cents back on their first gas tank purchase. The investigation soon focused on 43-year-old Anwan Mosby, known as Samantha Hampton's boyfriend. Police traced the stolen yellow Ram truck used in the kidnapping, discovering it had been reported stolen the previous October. With the help of an AT&T tracker installed in the vehicle, authorities located it inside the garage of an abandoned house. Investigators uncovered an empty bank envelope bearing Michelle's withdrawal slip discarded in a dumpster outside the dilapidated home. They collected a hoodie worn by one of the suspects, along with other items observed in the truck on surveillance footage. Forensic tests confirmed Mosby's DNA on the hoodie. Authorities tracked down Mosby. After a brief pursuit, he was apprehended, with a phone and firearm seized from his vehicle. Further examination of Mosby's phone uncovered conversations with a man named Manny, identified as 36-year-old Emmanuel Suarez, who was complicit in the kidnapping. Suarez also attempted to flee when police located him, but was ultimately captured. Security footage shows Suarez driving the stolen yellow truck in the days surrounding Michelle's murder. His DNA was also found on items retrieved from the dumpster at the abandoned house. Both men now face over 30 charges combined, including first-degree murder and robbery, with Mosby additionally charged federally for kidnapping. Given the twists and complexity of Michelle Hampton's case, we turn to retired NYPD Detective Tom Smith for insight. Tom, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to be here again, Sierra. From the outset, this case stood out because Michelle was kidnapped in broad daylight. In this case, little planning went into the crime. Sometimes criminals act without much thought, diving headfirst into situations that reveal their identity. This was exactly one of those reckless moments. The perpetrator was known to the family, lurking right outside Michelle Hampton's home. He drove the same vehicle he always used, making him an easy target for identification. The only task was to confirm who he was. Shortly after Michelle Hampton was abducted, the kidnappers sped away in that very car. Her pursuit ended abruptly when gunfire erupted from the abductor's car. This brazen act stunned everyone involved. What could explain such reckless behavior? The sheer audacity of firing shots, fully aware they were exposing themselves, was chilling. They knew their identities were clear, yet they gambled with danger in a reckless display. A lingering question remained. What 911 calls were made during this chaotic chase? What unfolded while Samantha followed them? The timeline here is murky. Samantha reportedly witnessed several ATM withdrawals before the shooting started. How long this standoff lasted remains unclear, but investigators promised clarity as the case progressed. The issue of the 911 call was particularly contentious. Conflicting reports emerged about when Samantha called for help. Some claimed she dialed 911 immediately. Others insisted the call only came after gunfire erupted. What was certain is that at some point, Samantha alerted authorities. The St. Louis Police Department vowed to review their 911 protocols, ensuring every step followed procedure. It made sense for police to scrutinize their response, aiming to improve future emergency handling. Experts speculated the 911 call likely came only after the shots were fired. If the call had come earlier, a swift police response would have flooded the area with officers. This suggested Samantha ceased her pursuit out of fear once bullets flew, prompting her to prioritize her own safety. Police then arrived, launching a search for the suspects. Samantha might have initially tried to manage the situation herself, grappling with shock and confusion. Her thoughts likely raced. What are they doing? How can I protect Michelle? She knew these men well. They were not strangers. But the gunfire shattered any hope of a peaceful resolution. Throughout the ordeal, it became painfully clear that Michelle and Samantha were familiar with the abductor. This man was Samantha's boyfriend, a figure well known in their family circle. When Samantha reported the crime, she revealed her suspicion that her boyfriend was involved, a revelation that shocked investigators. Yet this admission also provided a crucial lead, allowing police to identify a prime suspect quickly. With a known identity, the investigation shifted from guesswork to focused pursuit. They now had a name and vehicle description, enabling them to narrow their search efficiently. Samantha's cooperation evolved. From uncertainty and denial to a full understanding of the grim reality, she began aiding the investigation. Mosby's motive was sparked by Michelle's $40,000 settlement, which Samantha had confided to him, revealing a calculated act of greed that drove the kidnapping and murder. Investigators immediately began preparing for trial, knowing every detail would be crucial. Trial prep started during the investigation, not after grand jury proceedings. Understanding the motive and emotional context strengthened the case, revealing why this crime unfolded as it did. Adding to the evidence, surveillance footage captured the vehicle carrying Michelle and the suspects as they moved between ATMs, withdrawing cash. They only fled when a bank employee called Michelle inside to complete a transaction, forcing them to speed away. This footage confirmed their pursuit of Michelle's money, but also placed them squarely on camera. These images, now in police hands, were damning evidence. The significance of such video evidence cannot be overstated. Visual proof often outweighs eyewitness accounts. No matter how detailed testimony is, video captures the undeniable truth. Judges and juries see the raw actions unfold, making this a powerful tool for the prosecution. Tragically, this violent series culminated in a 911 call reporting gunfire. When officers arrived, they found Michelle Hampton fatally shot. She had been struck 5 times, a level of violence that suggested overkill. Experts described this as a grim and senseless tragedy. From the criminal's perspective, the outcome defied logic. They had obtained what they wanted, yet still crossed the line into murder. This baffling choice raised haunting questions about their true intentions. Even knowing Samantha was in pursuit and aware of their identities, they escalated to murder, a brutal act that ultimately served no purpose. The tragedy of this case is undeniable, a grim chapter that no one wished to unfold. Authorities confirmed that one suspect has now been apprehended. In a chilling admission, the suspect confessed to allowing Michelle Hampton to exit the vehicle, offering her a fleeting chance to escape, before firing the fatal shots. This admission stands out starkly, revealing a disturbing contradiction, an initial moment of mercy, abruptly replaced by a brutal decision to shoot her 5 times. The conflicting nature of this act is unsettling. Investigators suspect the killers avoided executing the crime inside the car to prevent leaving behind DNA or other incriminating traces. Forcing her out was likely a calculated move to minimize evidence inside the vehicle. Shooting Michelle outside the car effectively limited physical evidence to the immediate surroundings. Despite this, the perpetrators appeared confident they would evade capture, even considering the risks of not killing her inside the vehicle. It is both tragic and sickening to witness such cold, calculated cruelty taken to this extreme. The mention of evidence inside the car is particularly revealing. Though their plan aimed to avoid leaving blood or DNA inside, investigators discovered a bank envelope near the ATM, cementing their presence at the scene. Moreover, a hoodie found discarded in a nearby dumpster carried the suspect's DNA, a critical piece of the puzzle. This represents a substantial body of clear and damning evidence. The criminal mind here was narrowly focused. Money was the sole objective, blinding them to the risks. They believed they could escape without consequence. They failed to consider surveillance cameras and eyewitnesses, overlooking critical details inside the vehicle. Their tunnel vision was their undoing. This was a case of cold, money-driven violence with no foresight. From a law enforcement perspective, such short-sightedness simplifies the case and prosecution, as the perpetrators fail to cover their tracks. This case dates back some time. When coverage began last week, no arrests had been made, and no suspects were publicly identified. Yet, over the weekend, arrests occurred, prompting questions about the timing, especially since the boyfriend of Michelle's twin sister was identified early on. Several factors may explain the delay. Authorities might have been tracking the suspect's location discreetly, avoiding premature disclosure. Typically, police withhold suspect identities until they are certain or unable to locate them. Revealing details too soon can compromise the investigation. Surveillance operations may have been underway. Investigations follow their own rhythms. Patience often yields the right moment. Ultimately, authorities secured the suspect's identity and whereabouts before making the arrest. The defendant, Anwan Mosby, is confirmed as the boyfriend in this tragic story. Under intense interrogation, Mosby disclosed key details. He essentially admitted to initially allowing Michelle to flee before pulling the trigger. He confessed, in a manner of speaking, to the fatal shooting after a moment of hesitation. Yet despite this, he pleaded not guilty, a stance that adds complexity to the case. What does this mean for the investigation? Pleading not guilty is standard procedure, advised by legal counsel. Early admissions of guilt are rare. Defendants often seek leverage for plea deals aimed at reducing potential sentences. Thus, a not guilty plea is almost expected. Mosby faces roughly 20 charges, including a range of state offenses and a federal count. A second suspect has also been taken into custody, facing similar charges. Authorities remain vigilant, investigating whether others may have been involved. The arrest of suspects marks a milestone, but the inquiry presses on. Investigators continue interviewing witnesses and monitoring the suspects, hoping to uncover any additional accomplices. The investigation is far from over. As this case moves through the justice system, the gathering of evidence will intensify. The inquiry will not cease here. What lies ahead for the investigation? Police will transfer their findings to prosecutors, seeking to build an airtight case. They will pursue every lead. Digital footprints will come under scrutiny. Social media accounts, messages, and communications will be analyzed. Phone and computer records will be combed through to identify any further connections or conspirators. At present, there is no indication of others beyond the two suspects found in the vehicle. Still, investigators remain alert to the possibility of unseen collaborators or conspiracy charges. The suspect's devices will be central to unraveling the full extent of the crime. Perhaps the most devastating truth is that this murder was entirely preventable. Michelle Hampton began her day unaware it would be her last. She woke on a Wednesday morning, ready for work, only to be brutally taken from this world. The suspects consciously chose to end her life, yet failed miserably in covering their tracks. These were not hardened criminals. They left a trail of evidence behind. This case reveals the narrow focus of a criminal mind. Their sole obsession was money, blinding them to the consequences. The escalation to such violence was entirely unnecessary, a fact that weighs heavily on those who knew the case. While no murder can ever be justified, this act went far beyond any reason or excuse, shocking the community to its core. The crime began as a simple robbery. The perpetrators had already taken what they wanted. That should have marked the end. Yet, for reasons still unclear, they chose to snatch away a young life, leaving devastation in their wake for Michelle Hampton, her family, and the entire neighborhood.